Yes, order. Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, as you directed, I did not have to search for the minister. He was well within the principles of Parliament and on time. Honorable Speaker, it is now my pleasure and honor to present to the House and to the country, and to yourself, Honorable Speaker, the Minister for the National Treasury and Planning, FCPA, John Mbadi, expert.
Hold on, Minister. Take your seat. Honorable members, I have a short communication in relation to this agenda on order paper. Honorable members, as you are aware, the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Economic Planning is to make the public pronouncement of the budget highlights and revenue-raising measures for the national government for the financial year 2026-27 and the medium term during this afternoon sitting. In this regard, and in accordance with the standing orders, I have designated a suitable place in the chamber for that purpose. Honorable members, it is in the tradition of this House to recognize invited guests seated in the galleries of our hallowed chamber. I therefore wish to recognize the presence of the following members of the Cabinet. Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, EGH, Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. Honorable Geoffrey Ruku, Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Human Capital Development and Special Programs. Honorable Soipan Tuya, EGH, Cabinet Secretary for Defense. Honorable Alice Wahome, EGH, Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development. Honorable Aden Duale, EGH, Cabinet Secretary for Health and Majority Leader Emeritus of this House. Honorable Julius Migos Ogamba, EPS, Cabinet Secretary for Education. Honorable Mutai Kagwe, EGH, Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock Development, a former colleague of mine in the Senate and my yearmate at the University of Nairobi. The Honorable Salim Mvuria, EGH, Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs and Sports. The Honorable Opio Wandai, EGH, Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum and Minority Leader Emeritus of this House. Mrs. Hannah Wendot Cheptumo, Cabinet Secretary for Gender, Culture and Arts and Heritage. Honorable Dorcas Oduor, Senior Counsel, EGH, the Attorney General. Mrs. Mercy Wanjau, EGH, Secretary to the Cabinet. Honorable members, I also acknowledge all Principal Secretaries and the accompanying officials. I accord special recognition to the Principal Secretaries for the National Treasury and Economic Planning, Dr. Chris Kipto, CBS, Mr. Cyril Odede, and Dr. Boniface Makoha, who work closely with the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Economic Planning. Honorable members, we are also joined by the following judges of the Superior Courts. Honorable Justice Hilary Chemitei, Judge of the High Court. Honorable Justice Mohammed Kulo, Judge of the Environment and Land Court. Honorable Justice Onesimus Macau, Judge of the Employment and Labor Relations Courts. They are accompanied by the Deputy Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, Mr. Paul Ndemo, OGW. I also wish honorable members to recognize the heads and members of the constitutional commissions and independent officers, as well as the leadership of state corporations who are in attendance. I further wish to recognize the distinguished members of the diplomatic corps and who have graciously joined us for this event. I also acknowledge the presence of the chairperson of the Council of Governors, His Excellency FCPA Ahmed Abdullahi, EGH, Governor of Wajir County, Honorable members, on behalf of the House, I extend a warm welcome to all our invited guests. The National Assembly is honored by your presence on this auspicious occasion. Your continued partnership and support to the work of Parliament is duly noted and valued. Honorable members, I now interrupt the business of the House to allow Honorable FCPA John Mbadi, EGH, the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Economic Planning, also former leader of the minority party in the National Assembly, to make public pronouncement of the budget highlights and revenue-raising measures for the national government for the financial year 2026-2027 and the medium term. The Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, Honorable FCPA John Mbadi, EGH, you may now proceed with your afternoon job.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and honorable members of the 13th Parliament of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, it is my honor and privilege to present to this august House and to the people of Kenya the budget statement for the financial year 2026-2027. I make this statement in fulfillment of the requirements of Section 40 of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 412A, and Standing Order number 241 of the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, this is the first budget since the passing of the late Right Honorable His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, who is fondly remembered as a patriot and national hero, and who steadfastly championed economic justice, democracy, and equal opportunity for all Kenyans. His legacy continues to inspire and guide us as we transform Kenya into a newly industrialized and middle-income economy. In honor of his immense contribution to our country, I would politely request and invite members of this esteemed House to observe a moment of silence, which will take 1 minute.
Members be upstanding. Guests in the galleries be upstanding.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga was a key partner to His Excellency the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, in the broad-based arrangement. Mr. Speaker, this budget captures the ideals of the two great leaders, especially on the aspiration to transform our economy from its current status to a more developed nation status, a path to Canaan through Singapore. The extensive public participation throughout the budget process presents a solid basis and foundation for what is clearly the people's budget. Mr. Speaker, public participation is a constitutional imperative. In compliance with this requirement, I personally led extensive public engagements with Kenyans from across the country in the last 1 year. This was meant to get their views and inputs to the budget that I am presenting today. For example, I met youth and business community, particularly boda operators, Juakali artisans, leadership of the Mitumba sector, and scrap metal dealers. I also engaged extensively with members of the Fourth Estate, and in the process, launched their Financial Journalists Association. Additionally, I traveled to various regions and conducted numerous regional dialogues. These include Kilifi in December 2025 for the Coastal Region Dialogue, Migori in Nyanza, Kakamega in Western, and Eldoret and Nakuru in Rift Valley regions in the month of January 2026. Mr. Speaker, in February 2026, I traveled to Kiambu and Meru counties, while in May 2026, I met the youth and the business community from Kajiado and Nairobi regions. The month of May and June 2026 have been very intense in terms of engagement. Mr. Speaker, besides these regional dialogues, I joined Bunge la Mwananchi community at Jivanji Gardens, Nairobi, and Gumzo la Uchumi Mashinani in Busia County for conversation with faith-based organizations in May 2026. I have also on numerous occasions appeared in a number of television stations expounding on what we are doing and what we intend to do as a government. Further, in the same month of May 2026, I returned to my alma mater, the University of Nairobi, where I had a dialogue with comrades at the Chandaria Auditorium. Mr. Speaker, in my engagements with Mwananchi, I walked into a couple of shops to directly engage with the mobile phone dealers on the proposed tax changes, that is the excise duty on mobile phones. Additionally, last Thursday, 4th of June 2026, I joined a panel of eminent professionals on the Citizen Digital X-Space in unpacking the Finance Bill 2026. The eminent professionals included FCPA Professor Elizabeth Kalunda, the chairperson of Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, Mr. Fred Kimodo, Deloitte Tax Policy Lead, Mr. Raymond Mulenje, the Chief Executive Officer, Kenya Bankers Association, Mr. Tobias Alando, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and Mr. Kwame Owino, the Chief Executive Officer, Institute of Economic Affairs. A total of 15,847 Kenyans tuned in, while live listeners topped 14,249. Mr. Speaker, the message from Kenyans across the country, from our rural villages to our bustling towns and cities, the ordinary Mwananchi is clear and consistent in their messaging. They have genuine expectations from the government. Kenyans want an economy that works for them, an economy where the cost of living is manageable, where opportunities for employment and businesses are expanding, and where the benefits of economic growth are shared widely across society. Mr. Speaker, Wananchi want to see a government that listens to their concerns and responds with policies that promote opportunity, fairness, and prosperity. They want to see a government that protects their livelihoods, a government that supports farmers and small businesses, empowers the youth and women, and ensures that public resources are used prudently and transparently. Above all, the people of Kenya want assurance that their hard-earned taxes will translate into tangible improvements in their daily lives. Mr. Speaker, the main feedback from all these engagements was that the government should reduce the overall cost of living by lowering the tax burden on essential commodities, tame wastage of public resources, and decisively deal with corruption. Mr. Speaker, among the concerns and anxieties raised by Kenyans is the fear of potential outbreaks of infectious diseases, including Ebola, given the reported cases in some countries within the region. And so, Mr. Speaker, I wish to underscore that while Kenya is currently free of any confirmed Ebola virus disease, the government has activated the National Ebola Incident Management System to coordinate surveillance and response. Already, enhanced screening is taking place at all the points of entry, especially the airports and border points. The government has, in the meantime, trained over 1,000 health workers and put together a reserve team of 241 experts in epidemiology, laboratory services, and emergency response who remain on standby for rapid deployment. The government has also designated isolation and treatment facilities across the country, including at Kenyatta National Hospital and the National Police Service Hospital. The Ministry of Health is working closely with regional and international partners, including the World Health Organization, Africa CDC, IGAD, and the East African Community on this matter. Mr. Speaker, these efforts are further supported by our development partners. Already, the government of the United States of America has committed approximately $13.5 million towards health security interventions, including disease surveillance and emergency preparedness. In addition, the World Bank has mobilized resources under the Regional Recovery and Resilience Operation program, which will support, among others, interventions in strengthening the health systems. Mr. Speaker, these resources, complemented by domestic budgetary allocations, will significantly enhance Kenyans' capability and capacity to prevent, detect, and respond to Ebola and other epidemic-prone diseases while safeguarding livelihoods and maintaining economic stability. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, this demonstrates that this government is listening and responding to the concerns of citizens. On other concerns Kenyans raised with me during the public engagements I highlighted above, I will be elaborating on intervention that the government is putting in place to cushion Kenyans and improve their livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, the budget for financial year 2026-2027 will prioritize various interventions under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that promote private sector-led growth, expand employment opportunities, and enhance delivery of public services while preserving fiscal sustainability and building resilience against emerging economic challenges. Mr. Speaker, this budget is being presented at a time of heightened global uncertainty arising from the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. The conflict has disrupted global commodity markets and supply chains, weakened investor confidence, and tightened financial conditions. These developments have heightened risks to growth and inflation, increased pressure on public finances, and created uncertainty in global markets. For a developing economy such as Kenya, the impact is being felt through higher pump prices following a steep increase in global oil prices from an average of US $63.06 per barrel in February 2026 to US $94.4 per barrel by end of May 2026. In addition, tighter financing conditions, weakening export demand, slower investment flow, and rising cost of living continue to exert pressure on economic activities. Yet, even in this environment, new opportunities are emerging. Countries that strengthen competitiveness, deepen regional integration, and build resilient productive capacity will be the ones that will thrive. Mr. Speaker, it is against this backdrop that Kenya's economic journey over the past 3 years stands as a story of resilience. Difficult but necessary choices were made, delivering a steady recovery. Faced with significant domestic and external pressures and shocks, the government took difficult but necessary decisions to restore macroeconomic stability, strengthen public finances, and lay a firm foundation for sustainable growth. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the hard decisions are bearing fruits. Under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, we have recorded clear gains. First, the Kenyan economy has remained resilient and registered an average rate of 5% in the period of 2022 to 2025, outperforming the average global growth rate of 3.4% and that of sub-Saharan Africa of 4.1%. Importantly, macroeconomic stability has been preserved. Confidence in our economy has actually strengthened, and the foundation for sustained growth are now firmly in place. Macroeconomic fundamentals such as inflation and exchange rate have strongly rebounded and are projected to remain stable. Interest rates have declined, supporting growth in private sector credit from the banking industry. We have also accumulated the highest levels of official foreign exchange reserves of US $13.2 billion, which is equivalent to 5.6 months of import cover by May 2026, providing adequate cover and a buffer against short-term domestic and external shocks. Mr. Speaker, let me mention some of the key achievements. Since the rollout of BETTER, or bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the agriculture sector has registered key gains that include the following: reduced fertilizer costs through government subsidy programs, increased marketed agricultural production, expanded food security interventions, and strengthened farmer support services targeting both smallholder and commercial farmers. Specifically, fertilizer disbursements under the fertilizer subsidy program have increased substantially to 21.3 million bags in 2025 from, listen to this, 1.4 million bags disbursed in 2022. While the cost of a 50 kilogram bag of fertilizer declined from 7,500 shillings per bag to 2,500 shillings per bag. As a result of this, farmers realized estimated savings of approximately 105 billion shillings over a 2-year period, enabling increased investment in production. Agricultural production has increased significantly between 2022 and 2025. For example, maize production almost doubling to 67 million bags in 2025 from 34 million bags in 2022. While maize imports have declined substantially to 3.3 million bags from 9.9 million bags over the same period, reflecting improved domestic efficiency. The increased production contributed to a decline of retail prices of a 2 kilogram packet of maize flour from an average of 250 shillings to an average of 165 shillings over the same period. Paddy rice production also increased significantly to 303,724 metric tons in 2025 from 192,299 metric tons in 2022. To support expanded cultivation, the area under rice production in public irrigation schemes increased from 48,324 acres to 71,624 acres. Potato production increased to 2.5 million tons in 2025 from 1.8 million tons in 2022. And milk production increased to 5.5 million liters in 2025 from 4.6 million liters. Let me repeat that. Production of milk has increased from 5.5 billion liters in 2025 from 4.6 billion liters in 2022. The increased production has improved food security, reduced dependence on food imports, and contributed to more stable food prices and higher farmer incomes. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, farmers across the other sector, various value chains, have enhanced production and benefited from higher earnings. Tea production has grown to 550.4 million kilograms in 2025 from 535 million kilograms in 2022, while tea export earnings rose significantly to Kenya shillings 187 billion from Kenya shillings 163 billion over the same period. To support rehabilitation of aging plantations and expansion of coffee acreage, the government distributed coffee seedlings progressively across the years, including 85,000 seedlings distributed in the financial year of 23-24, 809,000 seedlings in financial year 2024-2025, and 3,127,769 seedlings in financial year 2025-2026, and a further 2,242,769 coffee seedlings under the March to May 2026 long-range program. As a result of these interventions, the area under coffee has increased from 115,500 hectares in 2025 from 109,385 hectares in 2022. In the edible oils industry or sector, the area under edible crops increased significantly to 114,350 hectares in 2025 from 60,000 hectares in 2022, reflecting growing farmer participation and investment in the subsector. Further, Mr. Speaker, interventions under the sugar sector has led to significant growth in both cane production and processing capacity, with the area under sugarcane cultivation increasing by 19.4% and the national sugar production rising to 815,454 metric tons in 2024 from 472,773 metric tons in 2022. Mr. Speaker, having spoken about agriculture, and you can see the kind of improvement that has taken place in agriculture, let me now turn to healthcare. Access to healthcare has expanded substantially through far-reaching reforms aimed at strengthening primary healthcare, improving service delivery, and ensuring sustainable health financing. A total of 31.2 million Kenyans are now registered under the Social Health Authority, compared to about 8 million under the defunct National Hospital Insurance Fund, while 228 primary care networks have been established and operationalized. A total of 107,831 community health promoters have been recruited and trained, while 16,810 medical interns have undergone internship, bringing healthcare services closer to communities. Mr. Speaker, the government recognizes the critical role the contracted healthcare facilities play in the delivery of healthcare services to Kenyans. It is with this in mind that the government in the current financial year of 25-26 allocated 4 billion for settlement of outstanding National Hospital Insurance Fund pending bills. And going forward, we will settle the balance of the bills that are owed under the defunct National Hospital Insurance Fund and which span over the years. Mr. Speaker, this allocation is specifically designated for settlement of NHIF pending bills owed to contracted health care facilities in accordance with the presidential directive that prioritized the clearance of outstanding obligations for facilities with claims not exceeding 10 million shillings. The claims earmarked for settlement under this allocation have been duly verified and adjudicated and will be fully paid before the close of this financial year, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government will subsequently prioritize payment of the outstanding claims exceeding the 10 million threshold once verified in the next budget. Mr. Speaker, the government has accelerated implementation of the Affordable Housing Program to address Kenya's housing deficit, create jobs, stimulate local manufacturing, support MSMEs, strengthen county economies, and improve the quality of life for millions of Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, through the program, number one, a total of 277,281 housing units have been completed or are under implementation nationwide as at May 2026. Two, the program has also successfully aggregated demand through the Boma Yangu platform, where more than 1 million Kenyans have registered their interest in home ownership, demonstrating both the scale of housing demand and growing public confidence in the government housing agenda. And I hope they will not listen to other voices outside there. Number three, to improve living conditions for students and support the expansion of higher education, the government has packaged 177,686 students' beds for development across universities, while 22,512 institutional housing units are under construction for our disciplined forces, teachers, healthcare workers, and other public servants. Number four, the program has also created over 640,442 jobs across the housing value chain through construction activities, professional services, manufacturing, logistics, and supporting industries. And of course, these are Kenyans who would be jobless if we didn't have their housing program. And number five, under the Modern Markets program, a total of 476 markets have been packaged for development nationwide, with 354 already under implementation. This will provide dignified trading spaces and support entrepreneurship, and that is the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, the government continues to implement a number of interventions to empower our youth. And in particular, the government has, one, constructed 4 youth empowerment centers in Mwea, Chepalungu, Dagoretti North, and Mandera South constituencies. In addition, 25 youth empowerment centers have been equipped, bringing the total to 156 youth empowerment centers across the country. Number two, the government has also enhanced skills development and wealth creation through provision of loans to 93,559 youth entrepreneurs through the Youth Enterprise Development Fund. Additionally, 91,253 youth have benefited through startup grants under the National Youth Opportunity Towards Advancement (NYOTA) program. The NYOTA program has also supported 51,604 youth through on-job experience in 26 counties across the country. And number three, government has also implemented Vijana Vuka na Afya project in Nairobi, Kisumu, and Mombasa, where 72,623 youths have benefited from subsidized sexual reproductive health services. Mr. Speaker, in support of the creative economy, the government has established 3 film hubs in Dedan Kimathi University in Nyeri. The Shinani program has been rolled out. The government has also facilitated the production of 1,745 local and foreign films in Kenya and trained 1,847 filmmakers. Mr. Speaker, to further empower the youth, the government, in partnership with the United Nations Development Program, has developed the NextGen.ke initiative that will provide recently graduated youth with paid internship opportunities in the private sector, enabling them to acquire practical workplace experience and market-relevant skills. And I personally led the negotiation on this scope. To support this intervention, the government has committed an initial allocation of 2 billion towards its implementation. Mr. Speaker, given the scale of the youth employment challenge, the government further calls upon development partners, the private sector, philanthropic organizations, and other stakeholders to join this national effort, acknowledging that the task of creating opportunities for Kenya's youth extends beyond the capacity of government alone and requires a broad-based partnership for sustainable impact. Honorable members and Mr. Speaker and honorable members, to support MSMEs, the government has moved deliberately to put affordable credit, markets, and shared infrastructure directly into the hands of the enterprises and the young people at the base of the economy. To expand access to affordable credit, the government set up the Hustler Fund in 2022. Since then, the fund has actually disbursed 87 billion Kenya shillings to 28 million accounts and given 4.5 million people previously unscored or blacklisted Kenyans a formal credit history for the first time. Mr. Speaker, under the NYOTA program, more than 5.6 billion has been invested in business skills training, mentorship, and startup capital, benefiting at least 84 youths in each of the country's 1,450 wards. And to promote value addition, the government has equipped 214 industrial development centers in our constituencies and opened regional markets to more than 1,100 of our enterprises, creating over 23,000 direct and indirect jobs. This is the bottom-up transformation at work, and in the coming year, we will scale it further. Mr. Speaker, the sustained investment by the government since 2022 has improved infrastructure development, thereby enhancing connectivity, boosting manufacturing, facilitating trade, and enhancing access to markets and essential services. Key achievements in this sector include the following. 1, expansion of road network across the country with over 2,669 kilometers of roads constructed and more than 132,000 kilometers maintained. Number 2, increase country's installed electricity generation capacity to 3,272 megawatts as at April 2026, with additional capacity expected from the 35 megawatts Globek power plant. To improve energy security and reliability, the government has modernized substations, strengthened the national grid, reduced system losses, and enhanced regional power interconnections. As a result, 73.45 kilometers of transmission lines and associated substations were constructed, while 200 kilometers of transmission lines were energized, including the Lesos Kabarnet, Kitui Wote, and Sondu Homa Bay lines. In addition, 330 kilometers of distribution lines and 7 associated substations were also completed. Mr. Speaker, during the same period, access to electricity expanded significantly, with the number of customers connected rising from 8.9 million to over 10.2 million Kenyans. And number 3, industrialization is currently gaining momentum, with 10 county aggregation and industrial parks constructed over the last 3 years to support value addition and create employment opportunities across the counties. Mr. Speaker, we have also invested heavily in critical social sectors and supported the vulnerable in the society. And as a result, a social protection program have been strengthened, with 1.2 million vulnerable Kenyans currently supported under the Inua Jamii program, helping to improve household resilience and protect the most vulnerable members of our society. And access to education and skill development has expanded through the implementation of far-reaching reforms across the education sector, including successful implementation of the competency-based curriculum. Number 2, rollout of the student-centered funding model, through which nearly 500,000 university and TVET students have benefited from scholarships and loans based on need and merit. Number 3, recruitment of 100,000 teachers to strengthen teaching capacity and improve learner outcomes, a record in the history of any government in this country. Number 4, timely and consistent release, and I want to repeat, timely and consistent release of capitation funds to support learning in basic institutions. Number 5, construction of over 23,000 classrooms and commencement of 1,600 laboratories in partnership with the National Government Constituency Development Fund, which continues to do a good job and deliver services to this country. Revitalization of technical and vocational education and training, with enrollment increasing from 562,499 trainees in 2022 to currently 825,484 trainees in 2025. Mr. Speaker, access to clean and safe water has improved, with an additional 6 million Kenyans gaining access to water services through investment in key projects, thus enhancing public health and supporting economic activity. This comes as no surprise, considering that Kenya is a leader in designing innovative, paradigm-shifting, locally led climate action. Take the FLOCA program, for example. It has broken the barrier in financing locally prioritized and locally led resilience investments in 1,380 wards across 45 counties, benefiting more than 2.5 million beneficiaries. Mr. Speaker, key among the FLOCA gold standard investments are the 58-kilometer rehabilitation of the Colonial Yatta Canal in Machakos County, a reverse osmosis water treatment facility in Makueni, and the Kolanya water project in Busia County. As a matter of fact, Kenya is the leading beneficiary of the Green Climate Fund, with a total of 37 projects approved and with a portfolio of more than $1 billion, a remarkable achievement that led Kenya's identification as the host of Green Climate Finance Africa Region Office. Mr. Speaker, the government has made strides in the blue economy. Gains made under it includes fish landing sites. 5 coastal counties have modern landing sites under development. Mwape in Kwale, Kenya shillings 255 million. Kidongo in Mombasa, 175 million shillings. Kilifi Central, 275 million. Kipini in Tana River, 151 million. Mokowe in Lamu, 239 million. Each of the sites includes ice and cold storage facilities, boat docking areas, processing points, ablution blocks, market stalls, and waste management system, supporting fish preservation, trade, and employment. These projects are scheduled for completion by June 2026. Also included in these gains is the lake site. There are 4 fish landing sites, 9 sites along Lake Victoria, including Asat, Ogal, Bumbe, Wichlum, Asembo Bay, Wakula, Mainuga, Nyandiwa, and Gorkachola at 1.49 billion by end of June 2026. Along Lake Turkana is also the Kalokol fish landing site, 182 million. Contractor on site includes docking facilities, cold storage and ice plants, fish processing areas and market support infrastructure. There is also Lower Engak Fish Market, 185 million. Contractor on site features cold storage, hygienic market stalls and processing facilities to support fishers and traders. This is the inclusion that we need in this country. Mr. Speaker, the arid and semi-arid lands in the northern Kenya region has historically been marginalized. And to drive inclusion and transform the region, the government is implementing various interventions targeting infrastructure development and social inclusion program. These include construction of a 750-kilometer northern Kenya Gateway Corridor that connects 3 expansive counties of Isiolo, Wajir, and Mandera to boost regional connectivity and trade. Under this, there are various ongoing roads that government is implementing with the support of development partners. Mr. Speaker, the government is also implementing various water interventions in the region through drilling and equipping of boreholes, construction of dams and water pans, and expansion of bulk water supply systems. Further, key interventions in the education sector include recruitment of 5,000 teachers in the hard-to-reach areas, integration of alternative learning systems like Duksi or Islamic religious schools and madrasa into formal education framework, construction of low-cost boarding facilities and dormitories in this region, provision of scholarships to protect vulnerable students from dropping out, and implementation of TVETs to equip pastoralist youth with hands-on skills. Finally, Mr. Speaker, devolution has been strengthened through the consistent and timely disbursement of resources to county governments, ensuring continuity in service delivery and implementation of county development programs. Since 2022, funding to county governments has steadily increased, with equitable share to counties increasing from 370 billion shillings in financial year 2022-23 budget to 428 billion Kenya shillings in the financial year 2026-27 budget. Total county allocations that include shareable revenue and additional allocations from the national government allocations, as well as donor proceeds, has therefore increased from 392 billion to 502 billion over the same period. This reflects government's unwavering commitment to safeguarding and strengthening devolution as a key pillar of inclusive national development. Mr. Speaker, while we take pride in these achievements, we cannot afford complacency. Global uncertainty persists, high cost of living continues to affect many households, youth unemployment persists, and climate-related shocks continue to affect livelihoods and production. Mr. Speaker, our task is therefore clear: to solve the many problems facing Kenyans by sustaining targeted interventions and better in order to accelerate job creation for our youth, grow investment and trade, and deepen economic resilience. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, we chose the theme of the financial year 2026-27 budget as sustaining the bottom-up economic transformation agenda for resilient and inclusive growth amid global uncertainty. This theme aligns with the current challenges and priorities of the government. And Mr. Speaker, as we move forward in implementing the government's transformation agenda, we remain mindful of all the concerns raised by Kenyans on the prevailing fiscal environment and the need for continued prudence in the management of public resources. The current fiscal position that is characterized by narrowing fiscal space calls for careful prioritization and disciplined execution of government programs. Mr. Speaker, let me speak plainly about the fiscal reality we face. Kenya's infrastructure financing deficit stands at approximately $5 billion every year. That's about 650 billion Kenya shillings. Our development budget, while growing, cannot close that gap alone. The era of financing every road, every power line, and every dam through government borrowing and taxation is over. not because we lack ambitions, but because we have learned from the consequences of that model. Debt finance infrastructure has left us with more debt service obligations that crowd out the very spending our people need most on health, education, and social protection. So, Mr. Speaker, we are going to build better. We are shifting from a model where government borrows to build to enhanced use of the public-private partnership and the recently established National Infrastructure Fund in funding priority infrastructure through private sector finances. That is the foundation on which this government's infrastructure program rests. Mr. Speaker, the Rironi-Nakuru-Mau Summit Expressway stands as proof. Construction of the expressway is now underway, and Kenyans will be driving on a modern 4 to 6 lane expressway once completed. Thank you. What makes this project truly historic is not the speed of delivery, it is how it was financed. Through the participation of the National Social Security Fund, both as a debt and equity investor, alongside international investors, a major national highway is being built with Kenyan capital by Kenyan workers and for the Kenyan people. Mr. Speaker, beyond the Rironi-Nakuru-Mau Summit project, the government will continue executing an ambitious infrastructure development plan through the National Infrastructure Fund. The fund will leverage on resources from privatization proceeds from mature national assets to attract private capital, domestic pension funds, and climate finance. Mr. Speaker, the rest of my statement now will present the economic context underpinning this budget, followed by the policy priorities, fiscal framework, expenditure proposals, and taxation measures for the financial year 2026-2027. I now turn to economic policy context, and I want to speak about the global context. Mr. Speaker, this budget, as I said earlier, has been prepared amidst heightened uncertainties associated with ongoing conflict in the Middle East. The conflict has disrupted critical energy infrastructure and major shipping routes, including the Strait of Hormuz, thereby exerting upward pressure on prices of energy and food. Mr. Speaker, against this backdrop, global growth is therefore projected to slow down to 3.1% in 2026 and 3.2% in 2027, from the average of 3.4% in both 2024 and 2025. Domestic economy. Back home, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the challenging global environment, the Kenyan economy has remained largely resilient, and the economy grew at an average of 5% in the period 2022 to 2025, outperforming the average global growth of 3.4% and that of sub-Saharan Africa of 4.1%. This performance reflects sound macroeconomic policy management, particularly prudent monetary and sound fiscal policies, sustained structural reforms, and the increasing diversification of the economy, which has enhanced its capacity to withstand severe shocks. Mr. Speaker, in 2025, the economy grew by 4.6% compared to a growth rate of 4.7% in 2024. This growth was supported by positive growth in all the sectors. All the sectors of the economy at least registered positive growth. The outlook for 2026 has been revised downwards, however, to 5% from the earlier projection of 5.3%, reflecting the adverse impact of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East to domestic economic activities. The economy is projected to maintain the momentum in 2027 with a projected growth rate of 5.2%. So, Mr. Speaker, macroeconomic indicators remain broadly stable through the emerging external pressures, though the emerging external pressures continue to impact domestic prices. And in particular, overall inflation increased to 6.7% in May 2026 from 5.6% in April and from 3.8% in May 2025 due to higher energy prices arising from the elevated global oil prices, but remained within the target range of plus or minus 2.5% over and above 5%. Inflation is expected to remain within the target range in the near term, assuming a de-escalation of the conflict in the Middle East and supported by appropriate monetary policy actions and government interventions. Expected stability in food prices due to favorable weather conditions and the stability in the exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, in April 2026, the government has deployed targeted stabilization measures to cushion consumers from the full impact of rising global fuel prices. These interventions include use of resources in the Petroleum Development Levy Fund to subsidize the fuel pump prices. And in addition, the government lowered the VAT rate on petroleum products for 3 months from 16% to 8%. Mr. Speaker, monetary conditions have eased considerably. This follows reduction in the central bank rate from 11.25% in December 2024 to the current rate of 8.7%. And I'm happy the CBK maintained the same rate for the time being. As a result, interest rates have declined over the same period. The 91-day Treasury bill rate declined about 8.3% in May 2026 from 10.3% in December 2024. Similarly, average commercial banks lending rates declined to 14.5% in May 2026 from 16.9% in May 2025 and 17.2% in November 2024. Reflecting the decline in the lending rates, credit to the private sector expanded by 9.3% in the year to May 2026 from 2% in the year to May 2025 and a contraction of 1.4% in December 2024. The external sector remains resilient despite emerging risks. The current account deficit is projected at 3% of GDP in 2026 compared to 2.1% of GDP in 2025, reflecting the higher international oil prices, lower receipts from services, slower growth in remittance inflows, and reduced exports. This is due to the adverse impact of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. At the same time, official foreign exchange reserves remains adequate, as I mentioned, at USD 13 billion in May 2026, equivalent to 5.6 months of import cover, and continues to provide adequate cover and a buffer against short-term domestic and external shocks. The exchange rate has also remained broadly stable, averaging 129.4 shillings per US dollar in May 2026. And activities in Nairobi Securities Exchange have improved over the past 1 year. The Nairobi Securities Exchange 20-share index rose by 59.9% to 3,491 points in May 2026, up from 2,183 points in May 2025, while market capitalization expanded by 61.6% to 3,412 billion from Kenya shillings 2.11 billion over the same period, trillion over the same period. However, between February and May 2026, the Nairobi Securities Exchange 20-share index declined by 5.5% as investors became cautious of the rising global uncertainty associated with the conflict in the Middle East. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal policy stance for financial year 2026-27 and the medium term is anchored on a fiscal consolidation strategy that advances the priorities of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda while safeguarding debt sustainability and provision of essential public services. The strategy will be supported by continuous domestic revenue mobilization and expenditure rationalization through targeted tax and expenditure reforms. As a result, the fiscal deficit, including grants, is projected to decline gradually from 5.5% of GDP in the financial year 26-27 to 3.3% of GDP in financial year 28-29. Risks remain though. Domestically, climate-related shocks could disrupt agricultural production and infrastructure, while externally, geopolitical tensions, commodity price volatility, weaker global growth, and tighter financial conditions continue to adversely affect inflation, exports, and capital flows. The government will continue to monitor evolution of these risks closely and deploy timely policy intervention to safeguard stability, strengthen resilience, and sustain inclusive economic growth. Mr. Speaker, I will now turn to the policy priorities and strategic interventions that will underpin the budget for financial year 2026-2027. Policy priorities and structural reforms. It will be anchored on bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Mr. Speaker, the economic context I have outlined is a clear reminder that we are operating in a period that demands resolve, discipline, and decisive actions. The convergence of global shocks and domestic pressures calls not only for incremental adjustments, but for bold and well-coordinated policy responses. In this regard, the government has taken and will continue to take firm and where necessary decisive actions to consolidate recent gains, safeguard macroeconomic stability, protect livelihoods, and strengthen economic transformation. Mr. Speaker, our focus is not only on navigating the immediate challenges, but also on accelerating structural transformation, creating jobs at scale, and ensuring that the benefits of growth are broadly shared among all Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, these interventions are being implemented within a coherent and forward-looking framework anchored on the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Better remains the government's principal vehicle for translating policy into tangible outcome, and at the household level by aligning investments, reforms, and institutions around the goal of inclusive growth and shared prosperity. Through the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, 5 core priority pillars, the government is scaling targeted interventions that address binding constraints to productivity, expand economic opportunities, and strengthen resilience across sectors. These priority pillars are deliberately structured to reinforce one another, ensuring that progress in one area catalyzes gains across the broader economy. Mr. Speaker, the government also continues to implement complementary cross-cutting policy interventions to sustain economic resilience, accelerate inclusive growth, and improve business environment. This will create a seamless transition to the next frontier of economic transformation. These interventions include the following. 1. Strengthening fiscal and monetary policy coordination to safeguard economic stability and reinforce investor confidence. 2. Enhancing fiscal sustainability by expanding domestic revenue mobilization and improving efficiency of public expenditure. 3. Modernization of strategic infrastructure in transport and logistics, energy, and water sector to improve productivity, connect markets, lower the cost of doing business, and enhance competitiveness. 4. Supporting industrial development, trade, tourism, blue economy, MSMEs, and innovation to accelerate job creation, broaden economic opportunities, and transform Kenya's economy to a net exporter of goods and services. 5. Strengthening environmental conservation and climate change, mitigation and adaptation measures to promote sustainable development and resilience. And 6, supporting human capital development through continued investment in quality education, universal health care, and well-targeted social protection interventions. 7, advancing youth empowerment through targeted investment in skills development, entrepreneurship, digital opportunities, and access to affordable financing. And 8, strengthening governance reforms to enhance public service delivery. Now I want to talk about evidence-based decision-making. Mr. Speaker, as we implement this budget, the government reaffirms its commitment to strengthening economic planning and development as the foundation of sustainable growth, prudent resource allocation, and improved service delivery to our citizens. In the coming financial year, we will intensify efforts to institutionalize evidence-based planning and decision-making across all levels of government. This approach will ensure that public resources are directed to interventions that deliver the highest economic and social returns, aligning with the national development priorities. To achieve this, the government will accelerate the finalization and implementation of a comprehensive economic planning policy and an economic planning bill. These 2 instruments will create a coherent, transparent mechanism for identifying, prioritizing, and sequencing government policies, programs, and projects based on rigorous economic analysis, affordability, and measurable impact. Mr. Speaker, we will also continue to invest in national statistical system, policy research, data analytics, and monitoring and evaluation to provide timely, reliable evidence for decision-making. Integrated planning and data management system will be rolled out to improve coordination among ministries, departments, agencies, and even county governments. Mr. Speaker, through these measures, we will foster a culture of evidence-based policy making, strengthen public accountability, and ensure that every shilling spent delivers maximum value to the people of Kenya. On the policy and legal and institutional reforms front, Mr. Speaker, to strengthen economic stability, the government continues to roll out targeted structural, institutional, and regulatory reforms to improve the business environment, boost public services efficiency, and reinforce accountability in public finances. In building resilience against climate change, Mr. Speaker, the government has continued to make concerted efforts to strengthen disaster risk management. The recently enacted National Disaster Risk Management Bill which is now an act of parliament, and I thank this National Assembly, provides a legal framework for coordination of disaster risk management activities across the 2 levels of government, supporting prompt responses when disasters occur. Mr. Speaker, to further strengthen the country's preparedness and response to climate-related risks, the National Treasury is spearheading the development of a new disaster risk financing strategy for the period 2026-2030, since the earlier strategy for the year 2018-2022 came to an end. Mr. Speaker, and in response to changes in climate, the government will continue to implement the Financing Locally Led Climate Action Program, a transformative initiative that has unlocked green investments at the county level, empowering local communities to adapt to impacts of climate change. Mr. Speaker, to finance large-scale climate and environmental projects, the government will establish the Kenya Green Investment Facility in line with the Kenya's commitments under the nationally determined contributions to the Paris Agreement. To further scale green financing, the government is finalizing the framework for issuance of sustainability-linked bonds with targets in forestry and rural electrification expansion. Mr. Speaker, Kenya secured the hosting rights for the Green Climate Fund Regional Office for East and Southern Africa in Nairobi, reinforcing the country's position as a regional green finance hub. Further, the National Treasury is at an advanced stage of accreditation as a direct access entity to the Green Climate Fund, enabling the country increase public sector-driven climate investments and opportunities. Mr. Speaker, the government will host the African Green Investment Forum in October 2026. And this forum will serve as a flagship continental initiative designed to mobilize substantial green finance, accelerate sustainable investments, and advance Africa's leadership in this domain. On public procurement reforms, Mr. Speaker, to operationalize procurement reforms and eliminate manual inefficiencies, the government officially launched the rollout of an end-to-end e-government procurement system in July 2025. The system has now shifted procurement processes from fragmented and manual processes to a fully digitized procurement platform. The platform has been integrated with core government systems, including IFMIS, Business Registration Services, and ITAX, with initial onboarding prioritizing national government ministries, departments and agencies. State corporations and county governments will then follow. Significant progress has been made, and to date, 1,543 procuring entities have been registered, over 40,000 suppliers registered, over 22,000 staff trained, over 12,000 suppliers or contractors have also been trained. 652 annual procurement plans have been published and over 8,000 tenders published. Mr. Speaker, going forward, the next steps will include full rollout of the system to all schools and other procuring entities that are yet to onboard to the EGP system. Continuous user training and change management to improve adoption and system utilization will be conducted. Further, Mr. Speaker, beginning July 1st, 2026, there will be no exemption. There will be no exemption to procure outside the system. Together, these measures will ensure that every shilling allocated through this budget delivers maximum value to Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, during the implementation of the EGP system, we have experienced challenges which have hindered Thank you. Mr. Speaker, during the implementation of EGP system, we have experienced challenges which have hindered the seamless implementation of the system. Some of these challenges include resistance from users and litigation in the courts. Mr. Speaker, to further strengthen our procurement framework, the government developed the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Bill, Amendment Bill 2026, among the key reform areas in the bill, which include mandatory disclosure and reporting requirements, promotion of local content, and preference and reservation schemes, especially for youth, women, and persons with disabilities, and provision of a stronger legal basis for electronic procurement and framework contracting. Mr. Speaker, I submitted this bill of 2026 to Parliament for consideration and approval. I urge the House to favorably consider the bill. I want to now speak about the reforms under the state corporations. Mr. Speaker, state corporations remain a cornerstone of Kenya's development architecture, delivering essential public services and catalyzing strategic investments. Mr. Speaker, I mentioned in my statement last year that the government embarked on a comprehensive reforms which target to streamline mandates, strengthen governance, enhance accountability, and improve operational efficiency of state-owned enterprises. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the reforms is ongoing through a multi-agency technical working committee. In the first phase, the committee considered 23 mergers, 16 dissolutions, 7 transfers of functions back to ministries, departments and agencies, and the declassification of selected state corporations. Mr. Speaker, under phase 1 of the reforms, the committee has finalized the review of enabling legislations of the affected state corporations and drafted appropriate bills where necessary. Review of the staff complements, skills and placement deployment of those affected so as to facilitate a smooth transition and documentation of assets and liabilities of the entities identified. I submitted to this House the draft bill supporting the implementation of the reforms under phase 1, and I urge the honorable members to favor the board of GOEs. All the government-owned enterprises are required to operate as commercial entities, that is for profit, be self-financing, be self-sustaining, and accountable to the public through the National Treasury. Let me now speak about National Infrastructure Fund. Mr. Speaker, in March 2026, the government established the National Infrastructure Fund following the enactment of the National Infrastructure Act of 2026. The NIF is an innovative mechanism for scaling up infrastructure development by mobilizing private capital and expertise to execute commercially viable infrastructure projects while reducing reliance on taxation and debt. The fund will promote growth of infrastructure projects by pooling capital from diverse sources, which include pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, private equity, banks, development finance institutions, among others, to finance large-scale and long-term projects. In this respect, Mr. Speaker, the proceeds from privatization will be channeled into the fund, that ensuring transparent revenue flow in financing national priority projects, including national highways, airports, seaports, electricity generation, ICT, water and irrigation, and agribusiness. As a start, the proceeds from the March 2026 IPO of Kenya Pipeline Company of 106 billion Kenya shillings, as well as the expected 204 billion Kenya shillings from the partial divestiture, to both current and future generations. Let me now talk about speak to sugar reforms, or the reforms in the sugar sector. Mr. Speaker, the government has also taken practical steps to deliver its promise to modernize the sugar mills and transform these once struggling factories into productive, sustainable enterprises. The sugar sector reform program has been significantly progressed following the implementation of the government leasing framework for state-owned sugar companies. The leasing process has since been successfully concluded, with investors having fully taken over operations of the sugar factories, namely Chemelis Sugar Company, Moroni Sugar Company, South Nyanza Sugar Company, and Zoia Sugar Company. Mr. Speaker, since the resumption of operations, substantial investments have been undertaken towards rehabilitation and modernization of the factories, resulting in significant revamping of the mills and improvement of operational capacity. These initiatives are expected to enhance efficiency, restore profitability, and protect the livelihoods of farmers. Mr. Speaker, these are not isolated transactions. They are proof that when governance is strengthened, when mandates are clarified, and when institutions are held to account, the corporations can be genuine engines of growth. The government will press forward, deepening these reforms and ensuring that every public enterprise earns its place through performance, transparency, and value created. Now, let me speak to national assets and inventory management. Mr. Speaker, to strengthen national assets management, the National Treasury has operationalized the assets and inventory management modules in our IFMIS, providing real-time visibility of public assets across all levels of government. An analysis of the asset registers shows that ministries, departments, and agencies collectively hold assets valued at approximately 4.9 trillion Kenya shillings, underscoring the importance of robust asset management. To strengthen transparency and support the transition to accrual accounting, the National Treasury has developed a government asset valuation policy framework and a public assets tagging framework. Mr. Speaker, to unlock greater value from these assets without placing additional pressure on public finances, the National Treasury is developing an asset optimization framework and a leasing framework to attract private capital and expertise while supporting infrastructure development and improved service delivery. Now let me speak to digital e-signatures in government. Mr. Speaker, in line with the digital transformation agenda, the government has also embarked on reforms to modernize and harmonize the legal and regulatory framework governing secure digital identities, electronic signatures, electronic seals, and time stamping services. Excuse me. Mr. Speaker, to make this a reality, I will in the next financial year submit to this House necessary amendments to the Public Finance Management Act and Kenya Information and Communications Act, as well as the attendant regulations. This will make use of electronic signatures, electronic seals, and time stamping services a reality in government, thereby creating efficiency in service delivery. Mr. Speaker, let me speak to something that has been troubling, the pending bills. Mr. Speaker, as I informed this House in my statement last year, the pending bills verification committee was established in November 2023 to review and validate outstanding claims and provide a credible basis for settlement. The committee has since concluded its work and analyzed a total of 91,911 pending bill claims, valued at over 637 billion shillings. Following this verification exercise, 29,885 claims, amounting to 235.6 billion, have been recommended for settlement. Of this amount, Kenya shillings 80.3 billion has already been settled through securitization in the road sector, leaving a verified outstanding balance of 155.3 billion Kenya shillings for other sectors. Mr. Speaker, to settle the verified outstanding balance of 155.3 billion Kenya shillings, the National Treasury has proposed a balanced and sustainable settlement strategy, which includes a combination of direct budgetary allocations and securitization. The proposal is to settle the verified outstanding balance of 155.3 billion over 2 years, starting with the financial year 2026-2027. Mr. Speaker, in the financial year 2026-27, the National Treasury is proposing a budgetary provision of 68 billion to settle the verified pending bills to suppliers and contractors owed by the government for amounts of up to 100 million shillings. This provision will also partly settle suppliers or contractors whose pending bills exceed 100 million shillings, ensuring that no supplier is excluded. With the settlement of this 68 billion worth of claims, the government will have settled 99% of the verified outstanding pending bills, representing 63% of the total value, a tremendous progress. Now, in terms of numbers, this will be 99 of the bills. But the remaining 88 billion worth of claims will be addressed through other budgetary provisions and instruments. Mr. Speaker, the deliberate policy of settling pending bills of up to 100 million Kenya shillings, while individually smaller in value, accounts for the majority of suppliers and have the highest multiplier effect on economic activity. This is to ensure that the micro, small, and medium enterprises are not starved of the essential working capital, which is critical to the sustainability of their businesses. Financial sector reforms. Mr. Speaker, Kenya's financial sector remains strong and continues to support households, businesses, savings, and investment across the country. Mr. Speaker, today, the banking sector remains strong, very stable and profitable, supported by adequate capital and liquidity buffers. In the year to March 2026, total banking sector assets grew by 13.8% from 7.7 trillion to 8.7 trillion, and profitability increased by 13.6% from 73 billion Kenya shilling to 83.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, to strengthen the banking sector's resilience, deepen competition, and improve access to credit for households and businesses, the government is implementing the following reforms. 1. Progressive increase in minimum core capital requirements for commercial banks from 1 billion to 10 billion by December 2029. 2, lifted the moratorium on licensing of new commercial banks effective 1st July 2025. 3, implementation of the revised risk-based credit pricing model anchored on the Kenya shilling overnight interbank average to enhance transparency and fairness in loan pricing and strengthen monetary policy transmission. And number 4, implementation of the banking penalties regulations 2025 to strengthen enforcement, governance, accountability, and compliance in the banking sector. Mr. Speaker, to strengthen banking sector's resilience and stability, the Business Laws Amendment Act of 2024 requires commercial banks to progressively raise the minimum core capital from 1 billion to 10 billion Kenya shillings by 2029 through targeted milestones. Mr. Speaker, while the government firmly upholds the strategic necessity of raising the minimum core capital, it is prudent that this transition be managed in a manner that is least disruptive to credit access and financial services delivery, particularly to the micro, small, and medium enterprise segment and other niche markets currently served by the banking industry. Mr. Speaker, to allow flexibility in achieving this objective and following wide consultation, especially with Kenya Bankers Association, I will be proposing amendments to the timeline specified in the Business Laws Amendment Act of 2024 to allow commercial banks raise the minimum core capital to 10 billion by 31st December 2032 without the annual milestones. This will provide the flexibility necessary for institutions to pursue measured, commercially sound, and market-sensitive capital raising strategies in a manner that preserves shareholder value and sustains investor confidence. Mr. Speaker, to make it easier and cheaper for Kenyans and businesses to send and receive money across East Africa region, partner states are working to connect their financial system as per the East African Community Payment System Master Plan of 2025 so that transactions are faster, more affordable, and more efficient to support trade and regional integration. Mr. Speaker, to safeguard the country against illicit financial flows, the government has over the last 2 years undertaken far-reaching reforms aimed at strengthening our anti-money laundering, counter-financing of terrorism, and counter-proliferation financing framework following the country's placement on the Financial Action Task Force Grey List in February 2024. These reforms include the adoption of the Virtual Asset Service Providers Legal Framework, strengthening beneficial ownership transparency, enhancing risk-based supervision across financial and designated non-financial business and professions sectors, improving interagency collaboration, and increasing investigations, prosecutions, and asset recovery efforts relating to money laundering and terrorism financing offenses. Further, Mr. Speaker, reporting institutions have continued to enhance compliance with AML and CFT obligations, thereby reinforcing the integrity and resilience of our financial system. Mr. Speaker, Kenya has actually made substantial progress in addressing the action items under the FATS Action Plan, with only a few outstanding measures remaining as we approach the conclusion of the implementation period. The government remains fully committed to finalizing the remaining reforms and securing Kenya's exit from the grey list at the earliest opportunity. These achievements demonstrate our unwavering resolve to align Kenya with the international best practices, safeguard the country against illicit financial flows, and strengthen investor confidence in our economy. And Mr. Speaker, the government is also supporting innovation in financial services through the implementation of the Virtual Asset Service Providers Act of 2025. And in this regard, we have developed regulations to govern virtual asset service providers. The regulations framework ensures that new technologies operate in a safe and regulated environment that protects users, strengthens financial stability, and encourages responsible innovation. Under capital markets, Mr. Speaker, I have the following to say. The government continues to implement measures to deepen and broaden capital markets in order to mobilize savings for productive long-term investment. These efforts have continued to yield results, with the Nairobi Securities Exchange recording exceptional performance in 2025. Mr. Speaker, the capital market supported the recent initial public offering by the Kenya Pipeline Company and its subsequent listing at the Nairobi Securities Exchange in March 2026. Further, the capital market supported recent issuances by various companies to raise capital. These include 44 billion Kenya shillings, billion Kenya shilling Sharia-compliant leasing bond for infrastructure financing. The Safaricom's Kenya shillings 20 billion green bond to support 5G expansion. The East Africa Breweries PLC Kenya shillings 16.8 billion medium-term note program, and the Kenya shilling 3.4 billion by Spearhead Africa Infrastructure Fund to support long-term infrastructure financing across the region. Mr. Speaker, innovation in market access has advanced significantly with the launch of ZD trading application integrated into the M-Pesa platform. And this groundbreaking platform enables Kenyans to conveniently buy and sell securities through their mobile phones, marking a major milestone in financial inclusion and retail investor participation. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is emerging as a key player in the carbon credit space, leveraging its rich natural resources and a strong base in renewable energy to participate in global climate markets. To actualize formal trading of carbon credits, the government is preparing carbon credit regulations, and these regulations will allow the government and private sector players to benefit through trading of carbon credits generated in Kenya and the region. And Mr. Speaker, in my recent public engagements, coffee farmers raised concerns of continued exploitation by middlemen in the marketing and pricing of their coffee. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure Kenyans that through the reforms the government is implementing at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange, the exploitative middlemen have been eliminated, ensuring farmers retain a much larger share of the export price of their coffee. Farmers today are able to sell their coffee directly at the exchange, supported by their various brokerage firms, majority of whom are owned by the farmers through their cooperative societies. The Nairobi Coffee Exchange has also enabled price discovery, thereby improving earnings by the coffee farmers. And to further support prompt payment of coffee sold through Nairobi Coffee Exchange, the government introduced the direct settlement system that has reduced payment delays across the coffee value chain. Mr. Speaker, coffee's traceability is today a reality. Through the Nairobi Coffee Exchange trading platform and the direct settlement system, cataloging and invoicing, every coffee lot has a unique identification, milling data, warehouse records, auction sales, and buyer data that can be accessed, allowing traceability of coffee from the farm to the buyer. This has created greater buyer confidence of the origin, quality, and authenticity of Kenyan coffee by eliminating coffee laundering. On pension reforms, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, delayed pension processing has for long been a source of frustration and hardship for retiring public servants. A civil servant who has dedicated their career to public service deserves timely and dignified access to their retirement benefits. Mr. Speaker, to hasten the processing of pension claims, I launched the e-pension management information system on 1st June 2026. Following this launch, we have now discontinued manual submission of pension claim unless expressly authorized by the National Treasury. Mr. Speaker, to ensure this reform delivers a lasting impact, ministries, departments, and agencies are now required to initiate pension claims at least 9 months before a public officer's retirement date. This will facilitate resolutions of late or incomplete submission of pension claims ahead of the retirement date for our employees. Further, the National Treasury, in collaboration with the Kenya School of Government, will institutionalize electronic pension management information system training as part of a continuous capacity building program to ensure sustained competency in pension administration across the public sector. Insurance reforms. Mr. Speaker, to expand access to insurance, the Insurance Regulatory Authority licensed 5 micro-insurance companies in financial year 24-25. This has increased access to affordable insurance, with over 11 million lives covered as of 31st December 2025. Mr. Speaker, to strengthen climate resilience, the government is promoting agricultural and index-based insurance products. Through the drive, which is de-risking, inclusivity, and value enhancement, livestock insurance project over 2.7 million livestock valued at 29.3 billion have been insured, while payouts exceeding 648 million have supported pastoral communities affected by drought since 2023. Further, the government has initiated amendments to the Insurance Act to establish agricultural insurance as a standalone class of insurance business. This reform will strengthen the regulatory framework for agricultural risk management and support food security, financial inclusion, and sustainable agricultural development. And Mr. Speaker, to deepen local insurance capacity and retain insurance premium within the domestic economy, the government will effective 1st July 2026 require all importers to obtain marine cargo insurance cover from insurance license under the Insurance Act prior to customs clearance. Fiscal policy framework. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of financial year 25-26 budget has remained broadly on course despite emerging pressures on revenue performance and expenditure demands. These developments have necessitated measured adjustments while at the same time informing a more deliberate and responsive fiscal policy stance for the financial year 26-27 and the medium term. And Mr. Speaker, on the revenue front, performance has fallen short of target in the financial year 2025-26. This is due to slower than expected tax receipts, largely driven by administrative constraints and a slowdown in economic activities. At the same time, expenditure pressures have intensified. The implementation of pending and newly negotiated collective bargaining agreements has raised the public sector wage bill beyond initial projections, thereby constraining fiscal space. In addition, emergency interventions in response to floods and drought have required additional resources. As a result of these developments, it became necessary to introduce targeted adjustment through supplementary budget number 1 of financial year 25-26. Mr. Speaker, to enhance tax administration, including upgrading of critical systems and strengthening of compliance efforts, the Kenya Revenue Authority was allocated additional resources in the supplementary budget number 1 for financial year 2025-27, to be exact, 17 billion. These interventions are expected to improve efficiency and support a recovery revenue performance. The supplementary budget 1 also reflected additional expenditure of 368.6 billion compared to the original budget to cater for the emerging expenditure pressures. In this regard, the fiscal deficit, including grants, is now projected at 1,199 billion, equivalent to 6.4% of GDP, compared to 901 billion or 4.7% of GDP in the original budget estimates. Mr. Speaker, fiscal policy is not merely about balancing budget. It is about creating conditions for sustainable growth, protecting the vulnerable and securing prosperity for the future generation. Accordingly, the fiscal policy for 26-27 and the medium term will be anchored on a growth-supportive consolidation path aligned to the government's priorities under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda and the 4th medium-term plan. The policy will prioritize enhanced domestic revenue mobilization, strengthen expenditure control, and strategic reprioritization of public spending. This approach aims to reinforce public debt sustainability and safeguard essential public service. Now let me turn to domestic revenue mobilization. Mr. Speaker, every shilling of development begins with every shilling of revenue collected fairly, efficiently, and transparently. To boost revenues, the government will continue to strengthen implementation of the national tax policy and medium-term revenue strategy, aimed at simplifying tax laws, rationalizing tax expenditures, and creating a fair, predictable, and efficient tax systems. Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Revenue Authority has intensified reforms to modernize tax administration, enhance compliance, and improve service delivery through technology and innovation. Notable progress has been made in expanding the electronic tax invoice management system, with over 655,000 taxpayers now onboarded, significantly enhancing transaction visibility and strengthening VAT compliance. Integration between iTax and customs systems has improved end-to-end taxpayer visibility, while the rollout of the electronic rental income tax system has simplified. I want to repeat that. While the rollout of the electronic rental income tax system has simplified compliance with the rental sector. So we have already implemented the system that I think some people are still dreaming about out there. Mr. Speaker, the Kenya Revenue Authority has also strengthened enforcement through data-driven compliance strategies, artificial intelligence, and non-intrusive cargo scanning technologies, enhancing the detection of illicit trade and reducing revenue leakages. As a result, The active taxpayer base increased by 82,000 to over 6.6 million taxpayers as at March 2026 from 6.5 million as at March 2025, reflecting a growing voluntary compliance and improved taxpayer engagement. And I want to thank Kenyans for this. Mr. Speaker, service delivery and trade facilitation have equally improved through initiatives such as Huduma Popote and enhanced customs systems, which have reduced cargo clearance times and improved operational efficiency. Mr. Speaker, in the financial year 26-27, Kenya Revenue Authority will intensify reforms to strengthen revenue mobilization, modernize tax administration, and improve taxpayer experience through the following measures. Number one, roll out integrated digital tax administration and revenue monitoring systems, including the domestic tax administration system, expanded electronic invoicing, virtual electronic tax registers, enhanced point-of-sale integration, and the e-customs mobile application to improve efficiency, compliance, and real-time visibility of transactions. Number two, implement device identification and registration and strengthen exchange of information frameworks to combat tax evasion, illicit trade, and cross-border revenue leakages. Number three, simplifies taxpayer processes through pre-populated returns, streamlined digital payment solutions, and expanded digital service delivery platforms to reduce the cost and burden of compliance. And number four, expand taxpayer outreach and support through initiatives such as Ushuru GPT, Omni-channel customer engagement system, Huduma Popote, and Ushuru Mashinani to enhance accessibility and responsiveness. Number five, strengthen enforcement, compliance, and revenue assurance through advanced data analytics, artificial intelligence, and integrated investigation and case management system. And number six, invest in core ICT infrastructure, integrated enterprise platform, and cybersecurity systems to safeguard the integrity, resilience, and efficiency of revenue administration. So, Mr. Speaker, the government will continue to scale up non-tax revenues by strengthening the capacity of ministries, departments, and agencies to efficiently generate income from public services while enhancing their operational systems to improve efficiency and overall revenue performance. Now, I want to speak to improving efficiency of the public expenditure. Mr. Speaker, raising revenue is only half the equation. Ensuring that every shilling delivers maximum value is equally important. And in order to improve the efficiency and value for money of public expenditure, the government is implementing targeted reforms to strengthen expenditure controls, enhance transparency, and improve public sector efficiency. These reforms include the full rollout of e-government procurement, completion of key treasury single account reforms, and transition to accrual-based accounting to strengthen cash management, fiscal oversight, and financial reporting. The government will also deepen public financial management reforms through the entrenchment of zero-based budgeting, digitization and automation of pension and payroll administration, and strengthen human resource management system to enhance efficiency, accountability, and service delivery across the public sector. Further, the government will optimize the management of public assets and liabilities, accelerate state corporation reforms and targeted privatization, and scale up the use of public-private partnerships to provide private sector or private capital, improve efficiency, and support delivery of commercially viable projects. Mr. Speaker, allow me now to expound on some of the expenditure reforms that we are implementing. One, migration to accrual accounting. Mr. Speaker, effective public finance management begins with what we own, what we owe, and how public resources are being utilized. To improve cash management, the government is implementing one of the most significant financial management reforms in Kenya's history. The transition from cash basis to accrual basis of accounting under the International Public Sector Accounting Standards. Following cabinet approval of the transition roadmap in March 2024, implementation commenced in financial year 2024-25 through a structured 3-year phased approach led by the National Treasury. Mr. Speaker, this reform fundamentally changes how government accounts for public resources. For the first time, Kenya's financial statements will present a complete and accurate picture of the country's financial position, capturing not just cash flows, but all public sector assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures. Public debt obligations, infrastructure assets, inventories, receivables, and payables will all be recognized and reported transparently, giving Parliament, citizens, and investors a true account of the nation's financial health. Mr. Speaker, implementation is progressing as scheduled across 3 phases. The first phase addressed financial assets and liabilities. The current phase incorporates inventories and prepayments. The final phase will bring in all remaining assets and liabilities, culminating in full consolidation of public sector entities. That is, consolidation of financial statements. To support this transition, the government is upgrading IFMIS and related systems, strengthening public sector asset management framework, undertaking asset identification and evaluation exercises across ministries, departments and agencies, counties and other public entities, and building capacity among public officers to sustain the reform beyond its implementation period. Mr. Speaker, this reform is not just about accounting standards. It is about accountability. It's about ensuring that those entrusted with public resources can be held to a higher standard of transparency and reinforcing public confidence in the stewardship of national resources. Number 2 is the Treasury single account. Mr. Speaker, as I had informed this House in last year's budget statement, the government has been implementing the Treasury single account framework to strengthen cash management and improve efficiency of public financial operations. Following the successful rollout of the Treasury single account to all ministries, the government has reduced the cost of overdraft financing from Central Bank of Kenya by 61% in this financial year, translating into substantial savings. I want again to pause there. I saw some people talking about reforming this so that there can be savings. I want to repeat that the government has reduced the cost of overdraft financing from Central Bank of Kenya by 61% in this financial year, translating already into substantial savings. So the work that you intend to do is actually already done. Mr. Speaker, the implemented Treasury single account model directly links invoices to specific batches submitted by ministries, departments, among other enhanced features. These Treasury single account reforms have substantially improved the efficiency of government exchequer operations, delivered transparency in exchequer and cash management, and ensured that public funds are released only against verified and approved obligations, thus laying the foundation for managing pending bills, and there is going to be no more cherry picking of invoices for payments. So, Mr. Speaker, building on this momentum in the financial year 26-27, the government will expand or extend the Treasury single account framework to county governments by completing the automation of county exchequer requisition processes, after which counties will progressively migrate to a Treasury single account architecture mirroring that of the national government. And 2, operationalize in collaboration with the CBK a granular data integration system to deliver real-time visibility of the cash and liquidity positions of state corporations and semi-autonomous government agencies. Mr. Speaker, taken together, these reforms represent significant modernization of our public cash management architecture. They are already delivering measurable savings, deepening fiscal transparency, and strengthening our capacity to deliver value for every shilling of public money. Let me now talk about strengthening the internal audit oversight and fiscal discipline. Mr. Speaker, every shilling entrusted to government must be accounted for and deliver value to the people of Kenya. The recurrence of audit queries and delays in implementing audit recommendations across public institutions continue to expose public resources to fiscal risk and weaken service delivery. And Mr. Speaker, to strengthen accountability, fiscal discipline, and support the government's zero-fault audit initiative, the government will introduce amendments to the Public Finance Management Act and related regulations to strengthen the mandate of the Office of the Internal Auditor General, and enhance oversight across the public sector. I am strengthening the Office of the Internal Audit. The reforms will establish a framework for tracking the implementation of audit recommendations and resolutions issued by Parliament, the Office of the Auditor General, audit committees, and other oversight institutions, with clear accountability mechanisms for non-compliance. The government will also strengthen internal audit functions across public entities, roll out integrated internal audit management system, and enhance the adoption of enterprise risk management to improve the identification and mitigation of fiscal and operational risk. Mr. Speaker, these reforms will strengthen transparency, internal controls, and prudent management of public resources while improving accountability and service delivery across government. Now let me turn to revenue projections for 2026-2027. Mr. Speaker, our fiscal projections reflect a careful balance between ambition and realism, ensuring that we live within our means while investing in our future. Based on the outlined policy measures, total revenue collection, including appropriation in aid, for the financial year 2026-27 is projected to be 3,630.5 billion.